Hi, good evening.
How are you today?
I've been looking forward to this speech for the great part of the last 2 weeks. So it's
Mhm.
finally, refreshing to be here.
Thank you for coming. So you can have the floor now. Good evening to you.
Good evening. Okay. Um, so do you mind if I share my screen?
Yeah, sure, you can.
Okay. Um, just give me a second. Let me give a comment. I don't know if you can see it now. Standard. Yeah. Can you see my screen, please?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay. Hi, good evening, and thank you guys for having me today. As likely said, my name is James Amartey, and I am a product manager. But I'm very sure that you guys didn't come here to listen to my life story. But I'll give you a brief introduction. Maybe it would also give you sort of a guide as to how I did it, and then how you can also do it. But basically, the title of this speech or this presentation is how to get your first job as a product manager with no experience. But I do not believe that because I know each and everyone has experience of their own. So I did a slight tweak of making it how to get a job as a product manager without taking too many interviews. Because when you have experience and when you don't have experience, sometimes there are certain things that companies look for that if you don't do, no matter the what of experience you have, you know, it just doesn't fit. It's just like selling a sneaker to a sandals lover. No matter what you do, they won't buy it. And as product managers, I know that we are constantly building products that have and fit a specific market. So your resume, your brand, and everything should fit a specific market. And this talk is going to help you to establish that. Now, I do not want to be like your boring science teacher in high school who just come and rattle. And then at the end of the day, you ask you, do you understand? Okay, next homework. No, I want this to be more of a conversation. So if I am talking and you do not have a clear understanding of what I'm trying to say or what I'm thinking, you can, go ahead and pose your questions so that I can answer them. So basically, I started my role as a product manager more accidentally. I'll say that because I didn't initially plan to be a product manager. It was nowhere near one of the things I wanted to do. But when I started in telecoms, I was doing product support. Now that means that customers have complaints, they come to you with a complaint, you document the complaint, you send it to engineers fix the complaint, and then you return to customer with a feedback, right? And that experience at that time I didn't realize it, but that experience, you know, gave me, some skills I think that propelled me, forward in my career. And I'll explain why. So imagine you work for a let's say a telecoms company, right? Or let me say, imagine you as a user, you have bought airtime, internet bundle from Airtel, MTN, whatever. And then you're trying to browse the internet to finish an online exam. And because your internet is slow, you're not able to finish that online exam. If you call the customer service, what you're going to get is somebody who's really frustrated and is not ready to listen to, oh, we are working on it. Yeah, our engineers are working on it. But then it also gave you the leeway to understand what customers really want. Customers can complain about one thing, but then what they want might be totally different because what you are providing is not helping them move from what they want to what they need, right? And that's basically is the role of a product manager. Now, I'm sure all of you have seen this whole Venn diagram of product, design, market, customer, and all of that stuff. And then they put the product manager right in the middle. Well, that Venn diagram is good, but it doesn't tell the full story because there's more to it than just these three spheres. And I'll explain shortly as we go on. So this is me. Unfortunately, I can't turn on my video because of some slight internet issues. It rained earlier today, so just to preserve massive bandwidth, I have decided to turn on my video. But for those of you who want to look at me, this is me. I work with Kids Read Art, as your host kindly said, and where we are providing open access to education for children between the ages of 2 to 8. Now, when you look in Africa, there's a big diversity between preschool, primary school, and everything that comes before your brain physically or mentally develops to be able to capture all that information. Unfortunately, in Africa, the number of people who actually get to start school right is very small. So that's basically what Kids Read Art is about. Now, I'm not here to talk too much about Kids Read Art or myself. So I'm here to give you what you need for the role. Now, this will take a very few basic steps. So we are going to look at the landscape. We are going to look at the industry. We are going to look at the roles, and we are going to look at the skills. Because all of this would be able to help you to streamline your application efforts so that you do not have to take too many interviews. Because when you take too many interviews, it takes the fun away. And sometimes too many rejections can get to you. I've been there, I know how it feels. So this is basically a shortcut of how I would have done it if I started from scratch. And I hope it would work for you. So a job interview is just like product management. It's 20% perception, 80% gut feeling. Now, what do I mean by this? When you go for a job interview, your job as a product manager is to persuade the hiring manager that you are good for the job. So that's where the perception comes in, right? They have to perceive you as somebody who can make decisions and then drive them to where they want to achieve. Now, a lot of product management will tell you that the focus is on the customer. And that's true. But then the focus is not always the customer because there's a business. And the business is what is going to put resources behind the product you are going to be developing. So if you focus on just the customer and just saying, customer-centric stuff, that's good, but then that's not complete. Because at the end of the day, a customer would come and buy the product. But if your customer is using the product for free, who's going to be paying for it? It's the business, it's the company that is hiring. So you also have to take them into consideration. So the hiring manager is basically looking for somebody who they can look at and say, okay, these tough decisions that have to be made, you are going to look at them, and then you are going to make these tough decisions. And most of the times, yes, there's data to back these decisions, but sometimes it's mostly gut feeling. Because you can see two data points where users are behaving a different way and the market is telling you a different thing. And it's that gut feeling of you knowing that this is what is right. That is what separates most product managers. So a job interview is just like product management, basically. It is you presenting a product that is you yourself, as to the company to be able to go through the various adaptation cycles. And then you can now come up with other mentors or other colleagues as you go on to train them to become product managers as well. They are not just hiring you for now, they are hiring you for 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. So they want to make sure that, as people are currently there, they can transition to and from you. So I'll shape this speech into 4 categories. Now, the 4 categories are the company, the market, the users, and then the role. And I get why this speech is focused on experience, because knowledge comes from experience comes by doing, competence is what you learn from doing. So there is no way, and I mean absolutely no way, a company will just hire you based on what you know alone. Sometimes it takes that experience of doing. But when you're coming fresh from a program such as Enoverlab, these experiences might not be extensive because, when you look at the landscape and you have, let's say, a product that has 100,000 users, 200,000 users, 1 million users, there's not enough preparation for you to be able to prepare for that kind of product. So school, boot camps, everything is a good step, but then gaining that extra experience also comes with it. But at the same time, too, you need a job for experience. So this is what I would do if I was in your position. Now, before I jump into all of that, do you guys have any questions? Hello. Yes.
Yeah,
Are
all
there
right.
any questions at this point?
I think you should just move on so we can just ask questions at the end.
Okay. All right.
Right? Thank you.
Okay. So, like I said, every product is, has what we call a product lifecycle. And you as a candidate, you are positioning yourself to work in a company that has products. Now, why did I introduce this? Because we all understand that the role of a product manager, is focused on shipping products to customers that they will love and use, and in turn, generate that value that the business is looking for. It could be money, it could be profit, it could be market share, whatever it is. But you cannot achieve that if you do not understand the life cycle of the product. Now, the product life cycle is what a product goes through from its initiation until it declines. Now, I'll take an example of MySpace. So MySpace started as, just a music catalog where you go listen to music and you're done. Sometimes they had this the social media vibe to it, but it was basically at its core a music catalog where you can just go find music and then that's it. And then it migrated it migrated in all these phases, and then now MySpace is no more. Now, Instagram, for example, has a different story. So Instagram, we know today, didn't start as Instagram we had at the inception. So product moves through certain stages. If you want to apply for a company, you need to first of all know the products they have, and then the stages of these products. Now, the stages of these products will give you an idea of the kind of skills and the kind of people they are looking for. All right. So if the product is in its inception, usually maybe they've just built out an MVP and then they've just pushed it out to the market, like we have in our case, where they are just testing the waters, testing the idea to see if it will work. When you're applying for such a company, you need to know what exactly they are looking for. Right? You need to understand where the product is and how they want to move the product to the next stage. Now, from introduction to maturity is pretty much different. It's pretty much a more trajectory step. But if you are applying to a company that's at the maturity stage, most people do not want a decline, even though it happens. Most companies do not want that decline. So if you are applying to a company like that, you need to know how they can turn this decline into another product or into another opportunity where they can continue to deliver value to customers. So I'll briefly go through this product lifecycle. Introduction is when they basically built out an MVP, and like I said, they've introduced it to the market. Now at growth, that's usually after 2 years, or let me say after a certain threshold of users. The company is now looking on to spread its wings. Usually at the growth stage, the product idea has been solidified. They have captured certain market share, and then they are looking to expand that. So maybe we could look at maybe the story of a paystack where they'll start in Nigeria and then they'll move to other countries, in Africa. That's the growth stage. So if you see a company opening new offices in different regions, they are growing. And I'll talk about the skills you need for a growth stage company or products with, or companies with growth stage products later in the slide. Maturity is when people have, sort of accepted the product and they've integrated into their lives, right? And maturity is a bit tricky because when you mature, the things that attracted you at first are not the things that would keep you. So at maturity products, their customers and their inceptions and their decisions and their likes and everything is changing. So for a mature product, we are looking at new markets, new customers, new customer segments, and new product offerings that could help, go with user, the changing taste of users. And I'll take an example of WhatsApp. When WhatsApp started, it was just a text app. And then all of a sudden, they say we can add statuses. Now, all of a sudden, they now introduce WhatsApp business for business. Now, all of a sudden, from WhatsApp business, you can send messages and receive messages from Facebook and Instagram. So now you see how those stages have played out. From when it was just a text messaging app to when they added status because people found out they need to have access to 24 hours stories and stuff like that. And then maturity is when people know that, okay, this is what I expect from WhatsApp, but what more can you give me? And then they go beyond and above to do that. So decline is when, people have either, maybe the problem which it was solving a few years ago has either lost its relevance, has become less of a priority to people, or the market has changed. So for example, if you did a COVID tracker app in 2020, by now your product would be in decline because, it's not necessarily high in people's priorities. And now people don't even use Macs anymore. So, me being scared about COVID right now is probably lesser than when COVID happened in February 2020. So that trajectory is the product. And as a product manager, you need to focus on the product. Now, sorry, there's supposed to be a picture here. So product adoption is different from the product lifecycle. Because even though the lifecycle is, the introduction involves users, not all users come at the same time. So I'll take an example of Bitcoin. Now, when Bitcoin came, or when cryptocurrency was now beginning, not everybody was in a rush to go do it. Some people were like, oh yeah, this is the next big thing. It has the potential to change things, to change the trajectory of everything. So there were people who rushed in first, and these are what we call the early adopters. And then the early majority are those who have, who they are more like, they have more initiative but less risk. So it's like, okay, you know what? I've heard about cryptocurrency. It looks interesting, but let me see people use it first. If it doesn't kill them or it doesn't explode, then I'll go in. So those people will come in later than the early adopters, right? And then we have the late majority, where it's like, okay, now everybody knows about it. We know that, okay, this is a short thing. Now we can all safely go and, start using it. And then the laggards are those people who, between life and death, if they'll choose death over using the product. It's not a product they would use. There's no way you can, like, they are wishy-washy. You don't know if they are in or out. Those kind of people, you don't need them, right? You need to focus on these three people. But among these three people, between the stage of the early majority and the late majority, there's what we call a chasm. Now, there's a period between that product adoption stage where, a company is struggling to move from the early majority to the late majority. Now, the late majority is where the market is. It's not the early majority, and then the early adopters could be like 10, at most 10% of the entire market for that product. The late majority is where the competition is. That is where, the big players are. That is where, for example, there's like a war for customers, market share. This is the late majority is where all of that happens, right? So when you look at a company that has a product, you have to ask yourself, is it at the early adopter stage? For example, if you are applying for a startup, is the technology they are using, is it something that people already are familiar with? Or are you now going to learn about it? So I'll give an example. If you're applying for an artificial intelligence or machine learning kind of startup, maybe their technology is useful, but not immediately. So you also have to understand how the product positions itself in the market to be able to position yourself to the hiring manager. Now I'll give you more in-depth tips later, but I just wanted to shift your focus from the resume and then the cover letter and all of that. And this is because, no matter how, less of an experience you have or, how vast of an experience you have, a lack of understanding to these things, is going to put your CV, your resume in the rejections list. So it's you being able to go beyond and understand who exactly you are going to serve. You get me? Before you can now decide whether these people are worth your time and also whether they should also invest in you. Because a job interview is a give and take. A lot of candidates think that companies, they need to work for the companies. But if you put it another way, companies also need workers because there's a lot of, maybe they have a spike in users. And so they need a lot of workers to be able to manage those things. So companies need us as much as we need them. So you being able to go beyond the press and the flashy stuff they post on social media to understand them is what will set you apart from others. Now, there's also another thing. So these two things have focused on the product and the market, but now we want to look at the business. Now, sorry, there's a bit of a mix-up, but the business is looking at what exactly the round of funding it has gone through. So basically, we all hear that, maybe this company has raised 700,000 seed. This company has raised 1 million, 2 million pre-seed. This company has raised 5 million seed A, seed B, whatever it is. Now, why does this matter? I've realized that what you do as a product manager highly depends or highly correlates with the amount of resources you have, right? The larger the resources, the more likely, you are able to get freedom to do certain things. If you work at a company that just raised 700,000, they wouldn't give you too much leeway as a company that has just raised 10 million or 15 million. You get me? So understanding the stage at which the company is would also let you position yourself as somebody who takes cost into consideration. Because without cost, you cannot really ship product. So being able to take those costs into consideration would help you to now see them and see what exactly they are working with, right? Because if you are applying for a role at a company that's worth 1 billion, the dynamics change very quickly from a company that's worth maybe 1 million, 10 million. So you being able to understand where they are at these stages would also help you understand what the expectations are. Because when the company is worth 1 billion, you know that that's not your fortune at the moment. Because the pressures from investors, from the market, the competition, it's just too much for somebody who has no experience. So I would say that when you are starting out, start out with a company that has an angel investor or pre-seed, or maybe has just raised a seed, right? Those people are more or less, let me say, more likely to give opportunity because they are looking for generalists, right? So pre-seed, angel seed are looking for generalists. They are looking for one person who can do a lot of things. Now, as you go higher in series A, series B, they are looking for more specialists. So if you say you're a technical product manager, they are looking for somebody who has like 6 or 7 years of experience. If you say you are a growth product manager, they are looking for somebody who has been able to maybe drive high growth startups with millions of users in different countries, stuff like that. So the higher the company is in series, the more complex their market is, the more complex their users are. So generally, I think you should start with companies that are in angel or pre-seed because they are more likely to give way for generalists, which you currently are, because you are now starting out and you are now trying to find your feet. Now, there are different types of product managers. Not all product managers are the same. So it's just like football. There are defenders, there are midfielders, there are goalkeepers, there are strikers. Even in midfield, there are central midfielders, there are right wingers, there are attacking midfielders, there are defensive midfielders. So in the PM space, there are different kinds of midfield. Sorry, I said midfielders. There are different kinds of product managers that you know that are segmented to different kinds of companies. So there are a lot of them actually, but I just decided to put them into these three segmentations based on the kind of products or the kind of markets they serve. So B2C product managers are more focused on building customer facing applications. These applications have longer roadmaps because they are serving a wider customer base. Now, an example would be Canva that I'm using right now. Before a company like Canva would come up with a roadmap, it would be very long because they have maybe 60 million users, and these users have different needs. So if you're a B2C, you have to decide if you want to be a B2C. If you decide to be a B2C, you have to take into consideration what customers are looking for, right? Because when you take customers, for example, there's different personas to customers, and even personas, there are different ways they look at things. So you have to take all of those things into consideration. The skills a B2C manager would need are fairly different from the skills a B2B manager would need. Now, a B2C manager would be, a general product manager where they understand the basis of product management. Now, if you take a look at the B2B product managers are mostly domain experts. So let's say you've worked in banking, it would be more prudent for you to go and let's say you're transitioning into product management, it would be more prudent for you to go and work at a fintech because you have domain experience from these things, from how banking works, how credit, debit, international remittance, and all of those things work. So that experience you've had, is going to help you to become more of an expert in the space they are operating. So a typical B2C company can be Jumia. So Jumia is an online e-commerce platform. I go there and I go and buy things. You go there, you go buy things, right? So what I may be looking for, might be different from what you may be looking for. So the B2B product manager has different headaches than a B2C product manager, right? So an example of a B2B product could be, let's say, an accounting software or an HR software, right? Usually, when it comes to these kind of products, you need to have, have some experience of the people who are using it and the space within which they apply to be able to have an appreciation of what the company is looking for and why and how you would be a good fit. Right. Now there are also what I call internal PMs. Internal PMs are those who build products for internal teams. So customer support, live chats, marketing, all of those people. Internal PMs build internal teams. So their focus is on workers. So let's say I work with a B2C. If I'm an internal PM, I'm building maybe the support system for customer support, where if somebody reports an issue, I can be able to now go and retrieve that issue and then send that issue to an engineer where they can work on that issue, right? So internal PMs work with those in the various roles, whether it's design, engineering, marketing, sales, whatever, to build systems that would help them perform their duties well. Now, I know there's a lot of products in the market, but most of these products are customizable because they have open APIs. So internal PMs are very technical people who deal with a lot of APIs, and then they mix and match APIs to build custom solutions that will fit the needs of the organization and the people working in there. So this is also another way to look at it. Now, as a PM, you are the eye of the business, the heart of your team, and the voice of your customer. Usually, a lot of people focus the PM role into just, customer focus, right? Which is good. But then, at the end of the day, there's, like I said, there's somebody going to pay for that thing, right? The services on which your app is running is running on maybe AWS. The billing is not going to the customer. The billing is going to your company. So the company's needs also have to be taken into consideration. Just this week, I was having, let me say, a back and forth with somebody on Twitter where they were like, ads are destroying the user experience for YouTube. And I was like, okay, yes, you do have a point that sometimes users don't like ads. But you also have to understand that when you take a product like YouTube, in as much as we, those who go and consume, part of the user fabric, there are also advertisers who are also users. There are also content managers or content creators who are also users, right? So just focusing on those who watch the videos alone would be at a detriment to your product. And I say this because a lot of people think product management is just about the customer is always right, all of those stuff. Yes, the customer is always right, but sometimes the business, you also have to take into consideration the business, because without the business, you wouldn't have the job in the first place. So you have to satisfy the customer in a way that makes the business happy, right? And also based on the skills of your team. So you cannot go and build a machine learning model or something when you don't have machine learning people in your team. So the skills of your team would also determine, one, what you can build and how far you can go with it, and then also how that can meet the customer's needs and provide how do you call it? And provide some level of leverage for the user or for the business. So it's not just, you're like an octopus where you have your hands in different plates. And it has to be so that you do not mess up the equilibrium of the application. So now this is the PM quadrant. Now this quadrant is a list of skills that as a PM you would need. And this ties out to why I introduced the product lifecycle and then the product adoption early. So as you can see, as the product adoption increases, the kind of skills the company is looking for is quite different from if it is early stage, right? So if you are applying for a company that has a very low product adoption rate, and then is also very early in the product life cycle, that means that it is just developing its MVP, it's just finding out about its market, about its users, marketing, product discovery, business analysis, go-to-market strategies are all of the skills that you would need to excel in such a startup. Now, these skills do not, encapsulate all you need, but it's just to give you an idea that, as the product and the company changes, so do the needs for their people also change it, and the skills they need. Right. So if the product life cycle, so for example, maybe they just introduce a product, but within a short few months, they have about 1 million users. For example, a product like Clubhouse, the adoption rates was very high, but then it was still very early in the startup phase. So when you look at that, they are looking at compliance, new markets, data regulations. So you need to have those skills, to be able to understand that when you do something, right? So you have maybe an e-commerce app, right? Now, e-commerce has nothing to do with fintech. But the moment you put a payment processor in your app, that means that compliance and regulations have to come in place. Now, you might not be an expert at that, but you would need to have certain knowledge about KYCs and all of that to be able to know that, okay, this is where the company is at, and then this is what they need to be able to process somebody's card payments. Because the moment somebody attaches a card to your system or to your product, that changes the landscape. So you have to be able to understand all of these things. So these are just let me say a small bit of a small set of skill sets that you would need, or understanding that you would need based on where the product is and where the users in the market is. So now we'll all talk about where to get experience. Now, internships, product boot camps, initiatives such as Enoverlab are great places to get internship experience because they give you projects that can help you establish and hone your product management skills, right? So these experiences would help when you're applying for a role. So it's about you being able to translate these experiences into a convincing story where the hiring manager can, place faith in you and then give you that entry level role. So like I said, you have to get, you have to get your foot in the door. And it doesn't necessarily mean you might be called product manager at the beginning, but then, you being able to have that interaction with the product team would be helpful. And that leads me to the the second point, which is extension rules or mirroring. So basically, these are rules that are directly called product management, but they have some level of sync with the product team. And maybe like I said, customer support, marketing, social media, all of these people have like certain terms that they interact with the product manager. So that build up would help you to, first of all, understand what the users are and what they need. So that when you eventually transition into the main role of being a product manager, you would have some level of experience coming out. Right. So, and then collaborations. Now, this a lot of people don't know this, but if you go on Behance, if you go on Dribble, if you go on all these designer platforms, there are product designers and developers who are constantly building out their portfolios, whether it's building a to-do list app, whether it's doing a, maybe they are designing a dashboard or something. I see that a lot on LinkedIn, right? So if you're a product manager, and since you would be working with some of these people in the real world, it's very helpful if you can collaborate with some of them on their freelance or personal projects. So maybe there's a developer who is building maybe a ticketing app, for example. You can be like, yo, man, I see that you're building a ticketing app. I won't charge you, but I just want to act as a product manager for your project, right? And then you can use that experience to now say that, okay, so that gives you two things. That gives you something they can look at and say, okay, this is your work. And then also that solidifies it when you go and state on your resume that you have teamwork capabilities, because they would ask you, what team have you worked with? To say, oh yeah, I worked with this designer and this developer to create this small e-commerce site. And these are the personas and the go-to-market strategies are built for it. So that now they can put some some level of competence to your CV. It's very easy for me to go and make bold claims about what I can do, but then when I show those bold claims that, oh, this is what I have done, it makes it much more easier for the hiring manager to trust you. So these are just a few places you can get experience. Now, the job application framework. Now, this is more of like the crust or the creed, because it's totally different from what you may have heard or what you might have known. Now, usually, when a company lists a vacancy, they tell you what they are looking for. But as applicants, we tell them what we are, which is wrong, because it's like, I give you measurements for a dress, and the dress has a waist of 33. If you show up with a waist of 45, it won't fit, right? So yes, they'll tell you to streamline your resume for the role, but I'll say that streamline the role for your resume. because it's not what you can do, it's what they are looking for. I hope you understand. Because if I can push weights and they are just looking for somebody to carry things, yes, I may have the strength to carry it, but I didn't position myself as that. So it's very easy for them to neglect what I'm doing. So like I said, so it's a 4 eyes framework. This is something that came off when I was preparing this thing. So the first is to identify the product role, opportunities, and the skills. So that's what I've just taken you through. So you identifying the role, the opportunities, and the skills within the company, right? So do not ignore, do not just take, okay, maybe company A is looking for a product manager. So you just look at, okay, the job description. No, go behind the job description. Look at their products. Look at their people. Look at the company. Read their blogs, read newsletters. Read something that will bring you closer to the company. And this is one thing I would say. If there's anything you will take from this talk, it is this. Focus on quality, not quantity. And I mean, focus on applying for fewer roles, but with more depth versus applying for a lot of roles with, and just being shallow. And this takes a bit of work because you have to actually go and sit down, learn about the company, know what their product is. When they say their mission is to do ABC, what exactly is that mission? What exactly are they looking for? Why is that even a mission to begin with in the first place? What was happening before they even decided to do these things? Right. So you being able to go beyond the job description is you being able to go beyond what your customer is saying and then looking at what they really want. Because at the end of the day, the company you're applying for is like a customer. So you have to, if you are going to make a product for a customer, you wouldn't just go and then just say, hey, you know what, I see you have headaches, so here's paracetamol, and that's it. You would go and ask them, when did this para start? When did this headache start? How long have you had this headache? What happened before you had this headache? All of those things to understand where they are coming from and how they arrived at where they are. Because they are not just hiring a product manager, there's a strategic reason to everything. So once you are able to uncover that strategic reason, you become very invaluable to the company because you understand it at the very core. You understand? You understand it at the very core. They are serving a particular group of customers because of the size of the market, whether it's 10 billion, 15 billion, whatever it is. So when you understand that core strategy that they are pursuing in the first place, it makes the rest of it much easier. Versus if you just go on the face surface and you just apply, right? And then the second, after you've identified, you need to investigate. Like I said, why are they hiring? What are they hiring for? What are they looking to achieve in this role, right? So are they hiring because they are growing and they need more people? Or are they hiring because maybe somebody is leaving the role and then it's leaving empty and they can't get somebody to replace them? Are they hiring because they are moving to a new country? Are they hiring because they are looking to launch a new product? Are they hiring because they've discovered a new opportunity and they're looking for people who can tap into that opportunity? Understanding and investigating those things is what will take you from just being a normal candidate to being the very top notch. Now, you have to, after you've been able to understand and investigate, after you've been able to identify and investigate, you now have to interpret it. Now you have to interpret how these findings integrate into the company's vision, mission, and how they look to serve their customers. So you have to be able to translate all of that into something meaningful. And then now you have to integrate everything together and present it to them visually. Now, having gone through several product management rules, I would say that at a certain stage, you actually to take a task, right? So if you have been able to do your homework from the beginning, you can use this presentation as a task. You know, if you feel confident in yourself, you can actually submit this presentation or this report as a cover letter or as part of your cover letters or additional documents for your application. That is provided you are very sure that they quote unquote won't run away with the idea and stuff like that. But then that one is a bit tricky. It depends on how you want to do it. But you need to have something that you can present. If you do marketing and you've heard of lead generation, this is basically what lead generation is. It's leaving something in the hands of the hiring manager or the recruiter for them to remember you and keep you in mind. Because your CV and everything can get lost. But if you're able to present a strategy on how they can do XYZ, right? Or maybe you see an opportunity here, they can, they will be more likely to invite you to maybe explain why you think that is the case, and based on that, they can even give you a job. There's, this one is a bit tricky, like I said, because there are companies that, they might take the idea and run with it. But if you do it well, it's not like you are giving them the whole flesh and bones or the whole meat, everything. No, you just give them something like a bait, and then that would invite them to consider you going forward. So identify, investigate, interpret, and then integrate. And then, so now I'll move to the resume because that's also part of the things you present. Now, the resume is a product. The creation of your resume is a creation of another product. And you have to treat it like that. It's an opportunity to hone your skills and showcase your strengths as a product manager. So if they say they are looking to develop a go-to-market strategy, how does your resume exhibit that? How does your CV tell them that, okay, this is actually a story, right? So your resume is a product. Like I said, the customer is a user, your resume is a product. So your product has to fit what the customer is looking for, else there will be a misfit. The value of a product manager isn't the list of your skills and experiences, right? It is not. This is because, product managers, the whole hula baloo about product management is making decisions. That is it. That is all. So you are making decisions about features, you are making decisions about markets, you are making decisions about strategies, you are making decisions about the product, the vision. That is all you are basically making decisions about. So basically it's not necessarily maybe I can do data analysis in Python or Tableau or whatever it is. That's cool. But you have to demonstrate, how you were able to make decisions, tough decisions. Because don't be surprised when you go to a product, an interview, and they ask you, when were you faced with a difficult decision and how did you make it? It's a very common question that they ask, and it's because they want to know how difficult of it, how easy it is for you to make difficult decisions. When you sell yourself, you should never sell yourself with a spec sheet. It's not okay, I can do this and this and this and this, right? You should rather compete against others based on, and you shouldn't also compete based on experience and educational background. You are not a commodity, you're a differentiated product. You are not a commodity, you're a differentiated product. Now, that should be the highlight of this whole thing. Product managers present their resumes as a product to differentiate them from other product managers. And it's quite ironic that all of you are product managers. So it's like I'm giving the same weapons to everybody. So right now it's all up to you people to find the ways where you can differentiate yourselves from each other. Because at the end of the day, there's always a competition. And somebody's going to come first, somebody's going to come last. But you have to make sure that you at least come within, even if you can't come first, you have to come within the top 3. Or top 2, if I'm to put it that way. So now you need a communication strategy for your resume. And based on the research you've done of the hiring of the hiring organization, to frame that to frame not only what you transmit in your resume, but how you can do it. So, like I said, your resume is not basically what you can do, but how you can do it. So you would have to find a way to be able to match the two of, like I said, looking at the product, the market, the company, and yourself, to be able to match the two to fit together. And then there can be some level of equilibrium to move forward. And this is basically my last slide. But all job descriptions tell you what the company is and what's important to them. So make sure your resume, speaks to that, not necessarily your ego. That, oh, maybe you are this, you are that, you are this, you are that. If I'm to apply for, certain roles where I've worked and the industries I've worked wouldn't matter, because it's not relevant in that situation. So you have to give people what is relevant and what exactly they want to do, and then be able to match those things. If you've watched Mad Men, the main character gave a quote that literally sums up job applications. People tell you who they are, but we ignore it because we want them to be who we want them to be. So it's not who you are, it's what people are and how you can translate yourself to fit into that space. And with that, I would like to bring my presentation to an end and invite further questions. Thank you very much.